All right, President Trump took his 2020 campaign on the road with a visit to New Mexico. Trump held a rally in Rio Rancho last night. He used the stop to try and win over voters, specifically Hispanic voters, as he looks to tilt the state in his favor in next year's election, despite losing New Mexico by 8 points in 2016.
We will campaign for every vote, and we will win the great state of New Mexico in 2020. And by the way, you have thousands and thousands of people outside who can't get in. So we love you. We love you. We appreciate it. We try to get the biggest arena we can get, and they're never big enough, frankly. The radical left Democrats want to demolish everything that we've gained. They want to raise your taxes. They want to bury you in regulation. They want to take away your health insurance, 180 million Americans. They want to erase American history, crush religious liberty, indoctrinate our students with left-wing ideology. And left-wing Democrats want to confiscate your guns and eliminate your God-given right to self-defense. You know that. As your president, I will never allow them to take away your liberty, your dignity, your Social Security. And I will never, ever allow them to take away your sacred right to keep and bear arms.
It's all too easy, isn't it? I mean, we've been saying the two talking points that he will take all the way into the fall of next year if people keep talking about him on the Democratic side. One is the confiscation of guns, which I think Mayor Pete was exactly right when he said that is just a non-starter. Democrats need to talk about issues where Americans are with them on that issue. Nobody, including Reverend Al yesterday, said, you know, people want their, nobody wants their doors kicked down when the federal government comes for guns. And as Reverend Al said, he would be getting phone calls all day about black Americans being targeted as well. And also taking away health care for 150, 160 million Americans. It's just, I'm sorry, it's a political loser. Twitter, the wonderful world of Twitter can be angry with me if they want to. It's just a political loser, and it won't work. But Gene, a bigger question, just looking at the clips from New Mexico, is why is Donald Trump there? He's minus 34% in New Mexico since his inauguration. I know a lot of people were saying the same about Minnesota, and he almost won Minnesota. This ain't Minnesota. It's not close right now. And I've got to say, I have no idea what he sees in going to New Mexico because they don't like him.
Yeah, I don't see it in New Mexico for him either, but he's there because he needs to try to expand his map. I mean, he won last time with Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania going a way that nobody expected, and he won those states by the slim, 70,000 votes. And he's way underwater in those states that he unexpectedly won last time. And so he's got to try to put more states in play. And so they've decided for some reason that New Mexico is a state that they can put in play. I don't see it. I don't know what they're seeing in those numbers, which look atrocious for him. It's a heavily Latino state. He talked about how, we love our Hispanics at that rally last night, and the way he talked about how we loved our African American in the last campaign. That didn't work out too well for him with African Americans. I don't think he's going to do that well with Latinos in New Mexico. I just don't see it.
And that's something really yesterday that Mark Caputo said. If you look at numbers, Hispanics in Florida have noticed that he has called over the past 4 years Hispanics rapists, called all Hispanics breeders, has associated Hispanics with gang members. I don't know what other world, what alternative reality Donald Trump lives in where he can call an entire race of people breeders and think they're going to vote for him. But that's an alternate reality that a lot of Hispanics in New Mexico and Florida and Texas do not live in.
Yeah, and making the act of coming to this country more difficult, which many Latinos in New Mexico did themselves, came here legally or sought asylum in the state of New Mexico. And they look at Donald Trump as being someone who wants to prevent future generations from doing that. Elise, to go back to the big themes Joe was talking about, we started the segment with Elizabeth Warren praising her event last night. But the Trump campaign believes she's also handed them a gift with the idea that she's going to get rid of private insurance in her Medicare for All health care plan. Also, that Beto O'Rourke at the debate the other night gave them a gift by saying explicitly the fantasy, the conspiracy that Democrats are coming for your guns. Well, he said, yeah, actually, that's right. We are coming for some of your guns. How big a problem is that for Democrats if Elizabeth Warren becomes the nominee? Elizabeth Warren seems to be trying to moderate her healthcare for all stance in recent days. She's kind of has shied away from Medicaid for all a bit, but this is a problem. This is a big problem, especially if they want, if the language continues to be towards open borders, and if the language continues to be not immigration enforcement down on the border of a reasonable standard that all Americans can agree that the border needs to be protected. And so that helps Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump actually was more on message last night than he seems to be in a while. What he needs to do if he wants to try to skate towards re-election is keep trying to paint the Democrats as socialist, and that was his message last night. Well, and Elise, you bring up a good point, and you go back to that first debate that the Democrats had. They're going to have to proactively move away from some positions that they put themselves, corners they put themselves in ideologically when they raised their hands. First of all, everybody on stage saying they were going to decriminalize illegal immigration. Everybody on stage saying that they were going to provide health care coverage to people who did cross the border illegally. And then they talked, of course, we had the first debate on busing. Instead of Democrats talking about the 2 or 3 things they have to talk about, which is we've got to stop Donald Trump from getting reelected. We've got to save the Supreme Court from being shaped by Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump for the next 50 years. And we have to save Obamacare and make it better. That's their message. And I think they have to proactively get back on the right track for an election that's going to be won in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida, and let the 160 million people on health insurance know that the federal government's not going to come in and rip away their health care coverage and tell them what pediatricians their children can now go to. Right. And also that the government isn't going to start going house to house confiscating guns. Yes. There's a message that could be a winner for Democrats. They can talk about background checks and they can talk about banning high volume magazines. There are plenty of gun supporters who that's a very palatable message to. When you start talking about gun confiscation, though, that's exactly the worst fear of strong Second Amendment supporters and plays into the narrative that, yes, the government is coming after your guns. And you know what also, Mika? Yeah. They can also, as Dick Durbin said, they can also stop talking about impeaching everybody they don't like. You know what? Maybe they stop running around, especially the lawyers that are running for President of the United States. Might actually think twice before talking about impeachment in every other breath. Okay, still I will get to that. Still ahead on Morning Joe, our first guest has a blunt assessment this morning of what's happening overseas. Quote, Saudi Arabia is not an ally of the United States. Former Obama advisor Ben Rhodes is standing by. He joins the conversation just ahead on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.